All right, thank you everyone for attending today's event. If you're a fan of true crime shows and IT7, you've come to the right place. In this hour, our host, Vicki Rogers, who has been featured here a few times before, so thank you for making a return appearance, will be presenting continual improvement and true crimes. Vicki currently serves as the Director of Service Management at OIT at Georgia Tech. She has over 20 years of IT experience, including technical and leadership roles. She has expertise in service management, change management, assuming that's organizational change management, right?
Yes, and IT change management,
Well, there you
both.
go. Leadership development and diversity in IT. We like to say the other change management, right? She holds a BBA in business management and an MBA and an EDS in learning, leadership, and organizational development. We love continuing education improvement. Congrats on that. Her graduate research involved developing women leaders in higher education IT. Vicki is a regular national speaker on leadership, service management, diversity, and topics and change. We'll cover a little bit of the groundworks. We will have a presentation last between 40 and 45 minutes with time left over Q&A. But don't be afraid to ask questions in the Q&A throughout or talk to each other in chat. That's what it's there for. But please use the Q&A window to ask your questions. If you do want to ask a question live, go ahead and use the raise hand feature, and I will take you off mute. And when you're done, please put yourself back on mute. And then, of course, again, we encourage you to talk to each other in the chat window. The chat transcripts, the recording, and the presentation will be available within a few business days after today's event, and it will be posted on the EDUCAUSE ITSM website within 5 business days. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Vicki.
Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate the opportunity. Love doing things with EDUCAUSE. EDUCAUSE has been a huge part of my career. About, I don't know, 15 years ago, I did the Leadership Institute with EDUCAUSE, and it really changed the trajectory of my career. So love being involved. I've served as a faculty member on one of the institutes and done several committees. So if you're not plugged in, I encourage you to get plugged in. EDUCAUSE is great for our institutions, but also for your personal growth and development. So thanks for having me. I normally would have my Georgia Tech background, but I decided since today's Valentine's that I do Lil Love Fest, and just so you know, I do work at Georgia Tech, and if you're familiar with Georgia, Georgia UGA and Georgia Tech are big rivals. I went to Georgia and I work for Georgia Tech, so there's a bit of a problem. It is in our employee handbook that we're not allowed to wear red. So this is the only day of the year that I allow myself to wear red at Georgia Tech, and I just couldn't put that background on and have the red on too. I was afraid I'd get reported. I'm just kidding. So yeah, we're going to talk about continuing improvement today and a little bit about true crime. Some of my presentations, when I come up with the ideas and then I go to present, I think that's a little silly, but I have presented this in a few other places and it got great reviews, so I hope you enjoy too. So I want us to have a little bit of fun, but I also want us to learn some things too together, and that includes me learning from you. I do like really interactive presentations, so webinars are a challenge for me. It's a stretch for me because I feed off the engagement of the group that I'm with. And so please continue to chat, ask me questions. If I miss one, Mitch will catch it. He's going to ask for questions at the end. But don't feel like you need to hold back if you just something's burning in your mind. So, show of hands, who likes true crime? I see a few. I love that. I really love true crime. Like I used to commute 2 hours one way to and from work. I'm 100% remote now, which is great. But during those commutes, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and true crime was up there. Whenever I go on a road trip, I'm listening to true crime. My spouse cuts the grass and listens to true crime, and then comes in and tells me about it. Now that I work from home, I was telling Mitch I have a new puppy and she might make an appearance. She's 5 months old, so she's not all that patient. And she wakes me up at the crack of dawn And so we have started watching like an episode of Dateline or an episode of 2020 in the morning after we get up and do our first potty break. So it's always on my mind, I guess. I might have a problem. I also love to read mysteries and crime novels, so know all about it. So when I was thinking about this presentation, um, there's just some of the ones that I've listened to before or that I've seen before. I'm really invested in the Atlanta Monster one. If you haven't heard it or seen
Vicky,
it,
sorry to interrupt. Nancy has her hand up, so I'll go ahead and take you off mute. Oh,
oh, she lowered it really fast, so
okay,
maybe she didn't
maybe just
have
an
it up.
accidental button click. So, all
Yeah.
right, sorry, carry on.
No. So really like the Atlanta Monster one. It's about a series of murders in Atlanta in the 80s, and that's when I was growing up. And well, I was grown by then, but we don't have to talk about age here. And I really liked Unsolved Mysteries as a kid. But if I think about when I really got invested in true crime, it was from this. So how many of you watched Scooby-Doo in like the 70s and 80s? Yeah, that's some good stuff. Um, I do have a grand dog named Moose, and he looks just like Scooby-Doo, and he dresses up like Scooby-Doo every year for Halloween, and I should have had that picture on me, but I don't. So yeah, I used to love those mysteries of figuring out who the bad guy was and those kinds of things. And so maybe that's what led me a little bit in this direction in my career. Because I do really love, yeah, those meddling kids. I really do love digging into something and figuring out why it's working that way and how we can make it better. I also grew up with a father that he worked for NCR for 35 years. He actually installed the first ATMs in Atlanta back in the late 70s, early 80s when ATMs became a thing. And I loved going to work with him and watching him work on computers and cash registers and those kinds of things. But he was also an amateur inventor. And he's 82 now. And he'll still, given any problem or any challenge, he'll say, there's got to be a better way. And he's always looking for ways to do it better, do it faster, do it with less costs and those kinds of things. And so I enjoy that aspect of my work as well. I am the director of service management at Georgia Tech. I manage a team that has incident, problem, change, knowledge, request, and configuration, and the service catalog. So we have lots of opportunities across all those areas to make improvement. And there's always, I tell my CIO, I feel like I have ultimate job security because there's always something you can improve on. And so I'm going to try to share some tips with you today on how to do that. So I want you to right now, before we really get started, think about what mystery do you need to solve? What's going on in your world right now that you just know it needs to be improved? And I bet you just immediately thought of one thing. I will tell you that our problem right now, and I'll be real candid with you, the thing that I'm digging into and working on is aging incidents. Our incidents are way too old. And if you look at the numbers, they're really ugly. I don't really think the numbers are telling the whole story, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I want you to kind of, and if you have a pencil, piece of paper, just kind of jot down what you think your problem might be, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go forward. So this is the first, just why do we need to do continuous improvement? And part of me thinks, do I really have to tell you this? I mean, you know why you need to do continuous improvement. It improves your products, your process, your systems, your service, and it can reduce your costs. And I know in higher ed, I work for a public institution. I saw some private institutions out there too, but I know in our public institution, we don't talk about money a lot. I don't know how you guys are, but so it's kind of a foreign concept to save money. I mean, I know we want to, but we don't necessarily put things in dollars and cents in public higher ed. But I think it's time we do because we can save money. And I was just telling Mitch, I was hoping to go to a conference in March that I'm probably not going to get to go to because we're having some challenges with our budget. And and so I had to think about that and how could I get more money so that my team can have more opportunities. And I want to apologize up front. I'm fighting a cold, so I might have to stop every now and then and take a drink of water or something like that. All right, so let's talk about continuous improvement metrics. This is where it all starts. Metrics are, they're just what we use to track how we're doing and what's happening in the organization, and they tell us a story. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that. I stole this from BMC. I'm very tool agnostic. I'll tell you what tool we use if you want me to, but I think any tool, including an Excel spreadsheet, can work. Excuse me, except you need to be able to use it, and it needs to give you the information you need. But I liked this visual of a metric is an assessment that enables organizations to understand how things are doing. A KPI is a subset of those metrics that tells you how effectively you're achieving your goals. And so what's the difference between a KPI and a metric? And at the end of the day, I don't think your customers care what you call it, but all KPIs are metrics. All metrics, though, are not KPIs. And so I want you to think about what a metric would be. So for us, one metric would be, how many open incidents do we have? 3,000. I'll just pull that number out of the sky. 3,000. Does that mean anything to you? Do you know if that's good or bad? You don't, because you don't have any context for it to go to. So the KPI is what's going to tell you exactly where you are in terms of your goals. So let's say I have 3,000 open incidents. Does that, if it's 3,000 open incidents and I'm closing 3,000 a week, then that's not that big a deal, right? But if I have 3,000 open incidents, but I'm only closing 100 a week, well, we might have a problem. So it's putting it in context. And I meant to include this slide, but I forgot. If you Google Legos, how to tell a story, I think you'll find there's a really good visual, and it talks about how that, if you've got a stack of Legos, if they're all in a bunch, that's not very helpful. If you separate them by color, well, that might be helpful. If you start to build something, then you start telling the story with those Legos. And so that's what we want to do. A metric is one blue Lego. A KPI is that blue Lego that's inside of a Star Wars Lego creation that tells the story of something. So think about that a little bit. And then here's some incident metrics. You can Google metrics, ITSM metrics, or ITIL metrics, and you'll find a gazillion things out there. I've just put forth a new incident management process guide to my senior leadership team. It's 35 pages long. Nobody's going to read that thing, but it does cover everything we need. And I figure it can provide someone some good sleeping material at night. But one of the things that's in that document is, what are we measuring? What are the metrics that you want to know about, and what do they mean to you? And so customer sat is always at the top of really any of the processes. And then, you've got these are some other great ones: number of recurring incidents, the mean time between system incidents, the number of calls escalated, things like that if you're not measuring, they're out there for you. And I would say start small if you're not measuring anything. But if you are, then how can you continue to improve on them and making sure they're telling you a story? So y'all want to just drop some things in the chat that you're measuring? Can you do that for me? Got very quiet. I'm uncomfortable with silence. CSAT, yeah. Most people are measuring their customer sats. Change success rate. Oh, that's a good one. I like change stuff. Anybody got something they think is really exotic that they're measuring? Percentage of standard changes. That's good stuff. Vernon, we went to EDUCAUSE together. I know you. a good one. Vernon's one of 2 people I know that live in Hawaii. All right. So think about what you're measuring, and then be careful of the watermelon effect. Have y'all ever heard of this? Oh, tickets entered by users in our service portal. That's a good one, like self-service. Yeah, you definitely want to measure that. That saves money. So be careful of the watermelon effect. If you're measuring something and it's saying something is really great, you need to make sure it's really great. And so I've experienced this in a couple of locations, both in higher ed and in corporate, where the stats looked good, but those rumblings you heard were different than what you were getting. So you got to be very careful about that you're not just seeing that outside green shell of the watermelon and not understanding that the inside's really red or yellow. All right. So think back to the mystery you need to solve. For us, the mystery is aging tickets. I'm not going to tell you what the average age of our incidents are because it's embarrassing. But it is something that's gotten a lot of attention. And so how we've dealt with it, the first thing we did is pull lots and lots of reports. And so whatever tool you're using, I'm sure you can pull reports. You can also, like I said, if you're using that spreadsheet, then you need to create some pivot tables and you need to understand. And so the way we're addressing the aging tickets, what we found out is that the tickets, our agents aren't consistently using our tool. And so while they are solving the problems for the users, they aren't going in and closing out the incident. And so it makes the link seem really long. And so we've been talking about that a lot. We're having some mini sessions at Georgia Tech on incident management and on change management, interestingly enough. We've done a lot of work to improve our major incident process to make sure that we're logging things correctly. And then we're producing reports for managers, service owners, and senior leadership members on a monthly basis to show them where the really old tickets are to make sure we're addressing them. And we've created dashboards in our tool so that people can have real-time information about those. One of the things that we have noticed is that, well, it's not a really interesting thing to notice because I guess everybody knows this. There's that old saying that if you don't measure it, it won't matter. It's hard to build a really good environment of measurement and success without really looking at the data. So what we found is that when we make the managers, or when we encourage the managers and the senior leaders and the service owners to look at that data, then it becomes important to them. And we're seeing a huge change just in the last since the beginning of the year. We've really made that. So I want you to think about what's the mystery you need to solve and what metric you might need, what KPI you might need, what multiple metrics you might need to help you figure that out and dig into it a little bit deeper. And like I said, I really enjoy the digging in because you find out so many interesting things. All right. So now let's go back to crimes. So a crime scene investigator, they believe in these 7 S's of investigation. Securing the scene, separating the witnesses, scanning the scene, seeing the scene, sketching the scene, searching for evidence, securing and collecting evidence. So I want you to approach your problem with this crime scene investigation. So the first thing you need to understand in securing the scene is, how can I get a good handle on what's happening? The only way that I'm going to make sure my data is valuable and means something is if it has integrity and you believe that data. And so before I could start measuring incidents and the age of incidents, I had to make sure that they were really all incidents, because one of the first things we found when we started talking about this the end of last year is that many of our incidents were actually requests, or they were actually projects. And that's fine if you don't have a tool that separates them out. I mean, I believe in ITIL practices, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit too, but if you're not separating out your incidents and requests, you need to figure out a way to do that through reporting, or you need to understand that your resolution times are going to be off a little bit because requests take longer and projects definitely take longer. So you need to be able to parse out that data to make it make sense. And I love what Mitch said. You can't measure what you don't manage. Thank you, Mitch. I was struggling for that. And don't measure for the sake of measuring. Make sure it means something. So how do we separate the witnesses? And I think that's where you need to talk to people. I think you need to talk to not just the agents. For me, incident management was about talking to the agents and seeing how they're managing their work. It was talking to their managers, to the service owners, to the senior leadership team, but that's not the whole story. Who else should I be talking to? Wish I had some Jeopardy music. Our customers, right? Like, how can I measure how things are really happening without talking to some customers? Another example of this is we are and I want a huge shout out to Mitch. Mitch is doing a class right now for EDUCAUSE around service catalog. And so we're really trying to improve our service catalog. And I bet everybody's trying to improve their service catalog. But this EDUCAUSE lab that they're doing has been super valuable for me and several members of my team to think through, how can I really improve this catalog and make it better for my customers? Well, I can't just say, IT people, what do you think about the catalog? It's really not about them at all. A service catalog is about your users. So I've got to, in our conversations around that, I've got to consider who all my customers are. And in higher ed, that is extremely different than in corporate, I believe, because we have different kinds of customers, right? Students, faculty, staff, stakeholders, community, businesses, all kinds of things to consider. And I don't know about y'all, I don't know how long y'all been in higher ed, but a student's perception is way different than a faculty member's perception. Vernon, so true. Legislature, we got to think about what's happening at the Capitol and all those kinds of things too. So if I ask a student how they want the service catalog to work versus how I ask that tenured faculty member that's in his 60s how he wants the catalog to work, I'm going to get different answers, and I need to consider that when I'm making those decisions. And the same thing's true with any kind of process improvement. I got to make sure I'm getting information from all the people that matter. That's also part of scanning the scene and seeing the scene, is that I'm aware of what's really happening in the environment and how I might be able to improve it. So, and then when we get to searching for evidence, that's when it gets fun. And I really do, like I said, I really do enjoy that. I bet you have people on your team that are really good at digging into things. You know who your detail-oriented people are, you know who your big picture people are. And that's why it's really important to have a really diverse team with different skills and strengths. We just did Strengths Finder again with our leadership group at Georgia Tech, and it was so fun to see how everything is. In fact, there's a paper on the other side of my office that we've outlined who everybody's strengths are, so we can kind of see when I'm talking to my boss, Maria, I know that she's especially good at a certain thing. I know that Richard from our Administrative Services Center is very good at executing things, getting things done, and making the most of that situation. If you haven't done Strengths Builder, I encourage you to. That book's close by here somewhere, but it was sponsored by Gallup. It's like 60 years of research. And the idea is that you find out what your strengths are, and then you focus on those strengths. And rather than trying to improve the things you're not good at, I'm never, ever going to be good at math. But I have people around me who are really good at math, that kind of thing. And then collecting that evidence. And so that's CSATs, that's data that you get from reporting and all those kinds of things. And then I found this forensic toolkit, which is the ITIL guiding principles. So in ITIL 4, they introduced the guiding principles. It may have been before. Did they have guiding principles before, Mitch?
They had them in ITIL V3 2011. Oh no, sorry, they had it in a practitioner that went
Oh,
after 2011 and before ITIL 4. But I think there were 8 guiding principles and they narrowed it down to 7.
okay, cool.
Good book to pick up, by the way, the practitioner book from after between V3 and 4. So
Yeah, I knew you would know. He knows these things. But these guiding principles, I mean, that's what they are. They are. I go back to these all the time. I refer to them when I'm talking to groups. I refer to them with my team all the time. And so I think you need to consider these guiding principles at the forefront. Value, is it worth my time to spend time on this? Start where you are. Boy, in IT, I don't know about y'all, but for us at Georgia Tech, we're a little engineering school, and that engineer mind is brilliant, but it also can get caught up in the details of, I've got to make it perfect before I put it out. And so that's why you need to consider start where you are. So no matter where you are in this process, there is a place to start and you can move forward. And then iteratively progressing with some feedback. We believe at Georgia Tech, and it's one of our mottos, that feedback is a gift. So we constantly ask for it from each other and from our customers, and I mean, even from our vendors, we want that feedback. And I'm going to ask you for feedback about this presentation afterwards, because it really is a gift. And as long as you're continuing to act on it and consider where it's coming from. Collaboration, think and work holistically. Keep it simple, y'all. If you're old as me, if you're old like me, then you remember that whole KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Isn't that awful that we said that? But it is sometimes a good reminder that we don't have to be so technical, so out there. If you are a technical person in IT and you have been for very long, you know that the way you speak to your customers is probably different than the way you speak to your internal technical teams. So make sure that you're remembering that. And then optimize and automate. Boy, everybody's talking about AI, right? AI is going to fix the world. I attended a session on AI just last week, and I think there's some mixed feelings. My sister, who's a conspiracy theorist, she really loves the true crime stuff too, but she has all kinds of ideas about the world that I don't necessarily share. And she thinks AI is going to kill us all, that it's going to become iRobot and we're going to end up, I don't know, living underground or something. But our president came out last year and said, we need to stop being afraid of AI because we're some of the people that invented it. And it really is interesting the things you can do. My oldest daughter is getting married June 1st. And I have asked ChatGPT to write my toast for the wedding. And let me tell you, they did a great job. And after I got the first version of it, I typed more mushy or make it more mushy. And it got even more. And then I said, make it funny. And so I think we can use AI in really positive ways. And I guarantee our students are using it. And so how can we consider it? And what can we optimize and automate so that we don't have to do it manually? A good example of that is my incident manager was producing a report in our tool, and he was having it emailed to him in Excel every month. And every month he was sending an Excel file and a PDF file to managers to review their old incidents. And that sounds good and everything. But what we figured out is that we could make a dashboard for them. And if you're using a tool you can use the tool you have probably to make dashboards, or if it's one of the simpler tools, you can use Tableau to make dashboards. Or heck, you can even just create a plain web page and put data up there and let people grab that information instead of you having to manually spend time doing it every month. So it's a good thought process to get in. So this is, it may be a little hard to see on your screen. I should have made that a little bigger. This is the CSI fundamental questions. So from ITIL, the fundamental questions you ask to do continual service improvement. And so we actually do this. We sit down when we have a problem and we walk through these fundamental questions. What is the vision? Where are we? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? What action should we take? And then you have to close the loop and say, did we get there? So another thing my team's focusing on this year is doing a whole lot of root cause analysis. And nobody enjoys that because it feels blamey sometimes if you're not careful in the way you do it. But we say anytime we have a major incident, we're going to do a root cause analysis, and we're going to sit down as a group and we're going to ask these questions. And I can't tell you how many things we've learned and the power of a team coming together and having these discussions. And then I love this. This is an overlay of the continual improvement fundamentals, and then the guiding principles. I misspelled principles. Dang it. Isn't it funny how when you're doing a present, you can review something a gazillion times, and then when you do it, that error just glares out at you. So I apologize. I'll fix that before we send the slides out to you. But this walks you through the continual improvement questions and then overlaying it with, comparing it with the guiding principles so you know when it can make a difference. So how do we keep momentum going? We focus on value. We collaborate and promote visibility. We think and work holistically, and we optimize and automate. And so this is a really good exercise for you to sit down with your team and talk about how we might make improvements. All right, time check. So these are some continuous improvement methodologies. I really do love ITIL. I really do prescribe to it, but there are also other things out there that you can use to help you do improvement. And so we've talked a lot about ITIL. The Kaizen is a good option, Six Sigma, Lean, Total Quality Management, and then this Plan, Do, Check, Act. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that here. So this Plan, Do, Check, Act model came from Deming in the 50s. He called it something weird, the Shewhart cycle for continuous learning improvement, because he didn't really come up with it. It was an idea of somebody that he was working with. And I really like this too. It goes through, where you start with the planning, and then you do something, and then you check on it, and then you say, okay, did it work? What do we do next? How do we reflect? How do we restart? How do we get better the next time? And so I think, at least in my organization, that last piece, the reflection, the standardizing, the making it better and restarting the cycle, is something we're not good at. We're really great after a major incident. Let me give you an example. We had a water leak in one of our major buildings on campus a few months ago. It was a big water leak. It leaked into our data closet and it fried a server rack. And so it caused a major incident. That rack happened to have things in it that were for the whole campus, so it made it really interesting. I don't know about y'all, but when your students' wireless go down, does that not make your phone ring off the hook? I mean, they just cannot live without it anymore. So when we sat down and all hands on deck, everybody came in, we had to borrow some servers that we had set aside for another project and, set them up quickly, get things going again. There were lots of people involved. It happened to be on a weekend. It also happened to be on a very cold weekend. And I know some of y'all like y'all understand cold. We don't do cold in Atlanta. So it was a challenge. And afterwards, everybody would, I mean, our CIO was great. He was very congratulatory and he was, y'all did a great job and everybody did so good. And let's name everybody and give kudos and it's done and it's over and let's go home and go to bed. And it's hard sometimes after that to say, I don't I got to make sure that while I'm thinking about it, I write these things down and I consider what we can do to improve. And so this cycle, this model really helps with that. I encourage you to use it. All right. So challenges. I still love Gilbert. And I swear to you, this happened today. Um, our our Office 365 team called a meeting with me and my team and said that they had a problem with our tool, which isn't really our responsibility, but of course, other duties is assigned. Um, so we met with her, she's a director level, and she said, I had this ticket open with another team, and basically they just said, and I'm not going to generalize, in the ticket, the developer wrote, I don't understand this, so I'm closing it, and closed the incident. And she was livid, and I understand that because actually what was happening is some glitch in our tool. I imagine when we did an update, if a user reported an issue and the agent marked the issue as customer response needed, like maybe they've asked the customer for something, when the customer responded, it closed the ticket. So you weren't knowing. I mean, our customers were being told, we don't care, basically. And so this cartoon's even funnier to me now because it says, hey, can I close your ticket now? And they say, no, you can't, you hadn't helped me. And the guy says, I'm not evaluated on how helpful I am. And your stubbornness is really becoming an obstacle to my financial success. And then it says, by the way, if our call gets disconnected, I'm also closing your ticket. And so have y'all ever seen this happen in your organizations? Surely not. It's probably just us. All right. And then here's some of my favorite things to also consider, and that is culture. Peter Drucker is an old management guy, and he says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's the truth, isn't it? It doesn't matter what your best laid plans are. If your culture is such a way that it's making things not happen well, then it's going to win. And so we're a prime example of that. Aging incidents. We said we cared about incident management. We have all these things in place to make sure that we're closing our incidents on time, but our culture had become a place where our agents weren't paying attention to the tool. So then I like this next step, which says mindset drives behavior, behavior drives culture, and culture drives business outcomes. So don't forget that when you're doing continuous improvement, it's not just about the numbers, it's not just about those metrics and KPIs, it's about the culture of the environment that you're in. So you might have to do some culture work before you do process work. In fact, I would bet you almost always have to. And so I have included this, and Mitch is going to send out these slides, but I have 3 slides of real world examples. So if you're one of those people that you can't think of what you want to improve next, this list might get you thinking. And so if you have your problem in your head that you were starting with at the beginning, and you have some ideas now of how to measure that and dig into it, then you might look here for the next step. And I love this. The first one that caught my eyes, I'm looking at it, is simplify. Oh, I clicked the thing. Simplify root cause analysis for problems. You don't go back to that keep it simple, stupid idea. Reduce the percentage of unsuccessful changes by 50%. I think Vernon was the one that said unsuccessful changes or something like that. And so how can we, so let's put some money where our mouth is, let's put some action. And so when you think about your goal setting for this year, and that's why I think this is a really timely topic at the beginning of the year, because this is when you set goals for the year. And there's all kinds of information out there on goal setting. I'm sure you all attended a session on that, but you want to make sure that you got some measurement and some time in there. So not just reduce the average age of open incidents, but reduce the average age from 30 days to 20 days by first quarter. And just depending on your organization, what's doable with a little stretch. All right. So think back to the mystery you need to solve. And I'm wondering if any of you have any thoughts of what you're going to do. So put those in the chat. Anybody got any plans? Anybody thought of something they want to improve that they might have some ideas about?
Also, feel free to raise your hand if you want to go off mute and to
Okay.
ask a question. So make Vicky happy, see a smiling face or a friendly
Yes,
face.
we'd love to see. Love to see.
All right, let's get Bryce here. Go ahead, Bryce.
Hi, Bryce Ucini from Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte here.
Okay,
I was
Charlotte.
just gonna, yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina. We're practically neighbors.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to mention, I figured this would be easier than typing all this out. Our kind of main initiative right now is improving our service catalog. Because, we got some feedback from a lot of our end users, especially. It's like, hey, this might make sense if you're an IT person, but it's, so full of jargon and we don't really understand how it's organized, where to find things. So that's kind of the main problem we're trying to fix in our environment.
Well, you need to do Mitch's lab. No, he didn't pay me to plug it, but it is really helpful. And I can't tell you, one of the things that I've definitely taken away from this process, and I've got to watch last week's session because I was in a leadership meeting. But just the commonality of our problems. And so if you're thinking about improving your service catalog, I would definitely reach out to other institutions. You might even want to post on this CG and EDUCAUSE. Give me a call, and you'll be amazed at how many people are in the same boat you're in, and you can learn together and work together on it. I think service catalog, my senior leadership team is so sick of hearing this from me, but I think it's a living thing, and you'll never run out of ways to make it better. Because it's just constantly evolving and changing. And because we work in technology, our technology is constantly evolving and changing. And so yeah, that's a hefty improvement goal, but it's a doable one. And you can take small steps. But really, again, Mitch is not paying me, but that lab has been really, really great for me, and then for my service catalog manager. I mean, he's just learned so much because this is the first time he's been in that role. So, and then there's a lot of resources out there. And so Mitch said in the chat they're hoping to do it again in July or August. So yeah. All right. Anybody else got something they want to improve? They want to talk about? Bryce, did you know that there is, and are you close to Hendersonville, North Carolina?
It's about an hour and a half. Yep.
Okay. There's a aquarium in Hendersonville that has a stingray that is expecting, and there's no male stingray in the tank, and they think maybe she's gotten pregnant from a shark in the tank, and it's very exciting. So that's what I thought of when I heard North Carolina.
I didn't realize that was so close to home. That's interesting.
Yeah. And they say it's going to be kind of like that giraffe watch. Do y'all remember the baby giraffe watch a couple of years ago? Well, it's probably been like 6 years ago. Anyway, all right. Give me another customer improvement, continual improvement project. Somebody.
I'll throw one out there in case it fuels any conversation. We're in the middle of improving our service portal, which contains our request catalog and our service catalog. And one of the things we're really looking at is improving searchability, right? So people can find what they're looking for. So any suggestions, any places to start that you would start at?
I'll tell you, this is it's one of the things we're doing too, Mitch. It's one of the big questions is how can we make it more searchable? And I got a great tip from you. I don't know if it was from you or from Marie, but one of you said that no matter what a customer calls it, put that in your tags.
Oh, yeah.
So if your customer calls it, I can't think of an example right now. Like our student information system is Banner, but our customers also call it Buzz something. I don't know why. It's never been called that. But Buzz is our mascot, by the way, but the yellow jacket. And see my wings? So so I think that's a really good tip, is to make sure you're getting all those tags in there for your search engine to be able to find. I also learned, and I kind of knew this, but it was good validation to learn it in your course. But students especially will not they won't drill down into things. They're just going to automatically go to the search. So you need to be aware that search is really, and I mean, I do it. How many times a day do y'all Google? I mean, I Google all day long. And I'm watching TV and they're talking about, like, I watched the Netflix special on Alexander the Great, and I'm on my phone the whole time I'm watching it, Googling Alexander the Great and finding out about, how accurate is this, and what else do I need to know about him, and those kinds of things. So those are just some ideas. I will tell you too, I also learned that people are using mobile devices. I mean, I don't know why I needed somebody to tell me that, but mobile device, so that accessibility on a mobile device is so much more important than it used to be. I mean, our students aren't ever going to sit down at a desktop and open up they want an app on their phone. They want to be able to, get to it quick and easy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's good suggestions in that in the lab. Mojgan is raising her hand, so I'm going to take her off, allow her to speak. So go ahead, Mojgan. Hello.
Hello, Mitch.
Hello.
This is so exciting to hear. So here at UC San Diego, I agree. We use the service catalog guidelines from EDUCAUSE. Mitch was a big part of that, and it's kind of like our bread and butter, and it is a living thing. Along with that, the service owners and offering managers are kind of the key. So for us, interesting thing we do is it's kind of like a little competition, but in a friendly way and a positive way. So we have a checklist, an annual goal that every service owner needs to complete 6 proactive improvements to their service offering a year. And we're tracking that in ServiceNow, and every service offering is so different. They're measuring different things and improving. So it's not just the reactive, like incident related improvements, but it is, oh, I heard something in the hallway that somebody wasn't, clear on how part of our service works. Let's sit down and do something like an incident review, but it's proactive, and it's we use Lean Six Sigma in a streamlined way. So we track those, and they're all different, and then we celebrate them at the all hands and everything. So that's something we do to push the culture across the whole organization.
So
yeah, we're actually attending a Process Palooza, so plug in for Process Palooza. UC San Diego is doing some great work around Lean Six Sigma and really building a strong culture. So I encourage you to reach out to her to learn about Process Palooza. So make a plug for you, Mojgan.
Thank you. Plugs everywhere today. Thank you.
Yeah, I think some of our staff from USC are coming down to join.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
I
We've
wrote
got
that.
a few minutes left for another question or two.
So I saw something in the chat that I think is interesting, unless somebody else has their hand raised.
I don't see any hands up if you want to call attention to that.
So Oh, this is from you, Mitch.
Oh, we don't have to call attention to that.
We have 180 catalog items, and we're looking at a similar effort,
Yeah, I was
especially
responding to Betsy, who private messaged us saying that she had, I'm sorry to call you out, Betsy, if you were intentional about wanting just to reach out to us, but she's looking at consolidating 152 different request forms, and that can be very challenging. So
Oh, we have 240. We were just talking about this yesterday. I have 240 request forms, and I need to figure out which ones are really being used. But yeah, a customer is never going to think of that many. But I mean, that's a lot. So I think consolidating is a really good effort and something we should consider. But I also learned from Mitch, I got to quit talking about you, Mitch. So I have always used, so if you don't know, Educause produced a white paper, some 15 years ago or so, on how to categorize things in your service catalog. And we used that like the very important document. I mean, we stuck to it. We were hard and fast with that categorization, because that's what Educause told us to do. And then Mitch and Marie said,
Marie,
you know, yeah, it may not really work that way, and that's okay. And I just had to hang my head, because I've had an argument for years with people that this is the way they say to do it, and that's the way we should do it. So I think that some flexibility there is a good thing, and Mitch supports that now too. All right, any other questions? All right, I have a couple more slides. Well, one more. So when Mitch sends these out, he's going to send you the top 19 true crime podcasts. The 20, it was really the top 20, but the one of them was inappropriate, so I removed it. I felt like I should tell you that. So take a look, and these are good links that'll get you there if you're interested in true crime. And then I like this little baby Yoda. My first day as a crime scene investigator detective. How did this man drown? He couldn't breathe underwater. Come on. Oh, I can't hear you laugh. I'm going to pretend all of you are laughing right now, because I think that's cute. Please, feedback is a gift. So I would love some feedback from you on anything you got that was helpful, or anything you got that was a waste of your time. I do believe relationships are everything. So I encourage you to reach out to me. I think that that's the beauty of the Educause community, is that we can learn and grow with each other. And we're, not really all that competitive, where we really can be a team, even though we aren't on the same team. So please reach out. I'd love to talk to you more about continuous improvement. I'd love to talk to you more about the service catalog. It's a hot button for me right now. And take this further. So thank you, Mitch, for having me. It was such a pleasure. It always is.
yeah, thanks, Vicki, for a fun and unique way of presenting, right? Very interactive and very informative. So this does conclude the presentation and event series. I want to thank Vicki for sharing her time and insight with us today. As she said, her contact information can be found on the slide deck. You will get this along with the chat transcript and the recording. Within a few business days, it'll be posted on the Educause ITSM website. You'll see a link to that in the email. I appreciate feedback as well. As soon as the recording ends and I close the Zoom session, you'll get a link to take a survey. We'd appreciate you filling it out. It helps us to plan future events and to understand what topics are most important to you. We're always looking for fresh ideas. So if you have a story you want to share, or a presentation you want to give, reach out to me directly. I'd love to have you come and chat with the community. I'm sure they would love to hear your story. And again, thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for taking the time out today to join this presentation. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.